Fred again, and this is going to be my third video about the UFO alien topic. I'm just going to call it Unidentified. That's kind of the common theme that runs throughout all this. As opposed to what we do know, which is what other people are up in arms against with the U.S. government, is they want to know, what do we know? Let's divulge all of it. I'm going to focus on what we don't know and how we wrestle with that. So let's start with let's just go like the baseline of this whole topic. Most of what we hear is theory, you know. It's until it's fact, it's just theory. And then so people, I've said this before, there's a lot of hearsay, there are a lot of opinions, there are a lot of theories, and what are these things? Are they real? Flying saucers, aliens? What are they? You know, we don't know, and that's the point. And so let me just go over what they might possibly be. Some things that have been discussed, okay? And there are other things maybe that are not on this list. So extraterrestrial, basically highly intelligent life, most likely more intelligent than human intelligence, not from planet Earth, okay, from another planet. And so another star system, whatever. Interdimensional. Okay, we talked about this a little bit. Another dimension could be time. It could be an alternate universe. You know, again, this is all theory. The greatest scientists don't have anything factual about this. It's just theoretical. I honestly don't even know if there's such a thing as... Yeah, I honestly, I would not confidently say that there are alternate universes and parallel universes. There are a lot of popular movies about this. I don't believe it. You know, I'm not going to say it's true, but I'm not going to say it's not true. We don't know. Again, until it's fact, it's theory. Crypto-terrestrials. This is the idea that there are other races of beings that live on Earth, underwater, on the seafloor, underground. It's often said that we have only mapped about 30% of Earth's, water surface, the oceans, etc. As opposed to like the moon, we've mapped supposedly all the moon's surface. So there's still a lot we don't know about our own planet, and so those are called crypto-terrestrials. Hidden tech. So this kind of goes along with the idea of what's called breakaway civilization. Raw, unedited video here, guys. Hidden tech. The idea that the U.S. and other countries have technologies that they've not divulged to the public that could potentially greatly improve human life. Energy sources, some people call, talk about zero-point energy, basically the idea that there's potential energy in just the smallest, quantities of space or matter, and if we can extract that, it's just like almost like unlimited energy from a human point of view. So the idea is that some of this technology exists or is being researched. And this kind of dovetails in this idea of a breakaway civilization. And maybe it's not about, these technologies that people witness, these crafts in the air that do seemingly impossible things. Maybe it's not anything other than human technology, but it's highly advanced. And maybe there's this kind of like sub-civilization that is running parallel to what's sort of recognized as, the common population of the world that is kind of keeping all this to themselves. And then there's time travel, the idea that, these beings are from the future, they're us, and they've evolved into these other forms, or they've made these bioengineered these shells, these biological shells of bipedal creatures that they call these little gray aliens and such. And some people think that these are just manufactured creatures. They're not actually organic living beings. So these are some of the theories. All right. Now, why might these things? These beings are notoriously evasive about who they are and mysterious, and just connect. Just like engage in sort of dark, isolated places, and it's rather than in broad daylight and very directly and plainly. Why? Well, there are two ideas. Well, maybe they're being very cautious, and even if they're more advanced, maybe they're concerned about harm. I mean, we've got people going into the Amazon forest and checking into tribes, and these tribes maybe feel very threatened, and they come attacking us with spears. And so, maybe we're cautious about presenting ourselves, wide out in the open. And so maybe that's what these beings are doing. They're concerned about their own vulnerability. But for the purpose of this video, which I'm calling Cosmic Grooming, I'm thinking more like, what about the potential predatory aspect of these potential beings? What if they're being deceptive in an attempt to exploit humanity, to cause harm? And I'm going to give a metaphor here, an example that is hopefully it'll be so intuitively clear. Now, okay, let's say they're not predatory and they're just like really cautious. Well, if they're not identifying themselves, the net result for us is kind of like, it's the same question. Like, do we just open the door wide, open our arms wide and say, here I am, and, talk to me, and, let's hang out, or, bring me on board your ship, whatever. I'm gonna lay out here why that's so crazy. So before I get to that, let me just address one other thing. There's this blurred line now between science and technology and spirituality. We're going to see in this sphere of unidentified things. This is very much bringing those things together. And to be specific, there are people in this field who, in an attempt to test and experiment and interact with these beings, will use channeling, kind of the idea of a seance, get together, around a table and hold hands and meditate and call on these beings. Writing, there's something called automatic writing, where supposedly this being kind of speaks through somebody or writes through them, as they write with a pen or type or something. Altered states. Unfortunately, a lot of people in this field, like many other sectors of society, are using drugs, mind-altering substances, to put themselves in a mental state that might make them more perceptive or, available or something like that. So basically lowering their defenses, inviting interaction. So, these things are often thought of like, the whole identified sphere, often thought of like, technology and advanced civilizations and stuff. There's a very, very direct overlap with the occult and spirituality. And so this is one of the reasons why I pay attention to this, is because as a Christian, I'm interested in it from a sci-fi point of view. It's interesting. I was into science when I was young and stuff, but my dad was a scientist. But like as a Christian, I see a lot of potential danger and harm. Okay, if we just openly pursue this topic. So let me go over a few terms real quick before we jump into my analogy. So there are different kinds of close encounters that were defined. I forget the name of the man who defined these. He defined, I think, 3 of them. One is called close encounters. The first kind, which means you just see something. Oh, I saw this thing in the sky. I don't know what it was. It didn't look like an airplane. It looked really odd. Was that a flying saucer? Close encounters. The second kind is, oh my gosh, there's this scorch marks on my lawn in a circular pattern or something like that, or a crop circle, or a scratch on my arm, and I was sleeping and I had this nightmare and I woke up and there are these scratches and it looks like a giant cat scratched me or something, but there's no evidence that anything came in the room. So like some evidence that some being came in and harmed them. Okay, that's the second kind. Close encounters of the third kind is encountering beings. Okay, that's the end of Steven Spielberg's movie, Close Encounters of the Third Kind. They meet these beings face to face, these aliens. And then there's abduction. Okay, some people apparently in this sphere who have experienced these experiencers who supposedly had gone on to craft or been taken by these non-human beings don't like the term abduction because supposedly the majority of the experiences were not negative. They were more, guests, on board these ships or that sort of thing. But often these are not voluntary. Okay, those are the ones we're talking about. Meaning they didn't, the person didn't initiate it. There were these beings who initiated this contact, this invitation. And then there's human initiated, meaning, like psionics, it's called, where it's people who train to psychically, see other things, send their minds somewhere, astral projection, these different things. So in other words, it's the person initiating, not some alien being. Those are the terms for close encounters. So here's my question. When you're a kid and you're growing up, did your parent ever say don't talk to strangers? Well, I think that's an oversimplistic parental direction. Life's all about meeting strangers. And even as a kid, like you go to school, you're going to meet a bunch of strangers. All your classmates are strangers until you become friends, right? And so, we know what it means, right? It means watch out. Be careful of people who might want to cause you harm or take advantage of you or something like that. So, the classic example is, the kid's walking down the sidewalk and here pulls up a car real slow and the guy's like, hey kids, what are you up to? And, oh, hey, it's really hot out. I got some popsicles here. Do you want some popsicles? And just tempting the kids to come with something, taking advantage of the overly trusting or the gullible, and the kids who are not so wary, and causing to do them harm. Okay, it's predator. We call them predators now. We call them groomers. That's like, okay, we're familiar with that as kids growing up. Hopefully one of our parents told us that. But then I am a parent, and I've had to teach my kids how to be careful, all right? To watch out for predators and groomers. I may not have used those terms. If my kids were little and I was standing talking with somebody they didn't know, but we knew each other and we're really good friends, maybe I give that friend a hug, or hopefully I expect them to sense that, to observe how I am interacting with this person and not be afraid, okay? And yeah, maybe I'll even have, say something like, oh, give Uncle so-and-so a hug or whatever. If I know I can really trust that person, I want to give them those signals to them so that they know. So, and, our kids get to know us and they know how to see those signals. So, again, I don't want to communicate this idea that, just because you don't know somebody, don't be antisocial or paranoid or something like that. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about unwisely just lowering our defenses. Okay, where is this most prevalent nowadays, most relevant? Well, it's kids on video games, okay? You playing your PS and, whatever, and there are adults who are on social media, Instagram or whatever, Facebook, and these adults pretend to be kids. It's evil. It's so wicked. And they're just trying to connect and find the open door with some kid to somehow extort something, photographs of the kids. The kids send pictures of themselves, to even meet. And that's just terrifying. I mean, I actually had a coworker at a previous job, and it was pretty blatant. It was pretty amazing. He was using the work computer and email system to contact like underage, girls and stuff like that, to meet up and commit a crime basically. And I think I don't know if it was the FBI, whatever. Like they had, they had a separate account pretending, to be a kid to catch him. Right? It was a sting, and wow. So he ended up in prison. So I can say firsthand, like I know this stuff happens. From that, I know somebody who was guilty of doing that, and so to my knowledge, I don't believe my kids were opened the door to anybody dangerous like that in their lives, but I don't know. Sometimes kids don't tell you everything. So that's it, guys. Like, we warn our kids about this on social media and gaming, and yet why would grown adults just lower our defenses and open the door and open our arms and be like, yeah, let's talk. I mean, there's a guy, I forget the guy's name. He claims to be in constant communication, like telepathically, with this being, who he calls the lady, and yeah, and when he's pushed to answer, like, okay, who is this person, or whenever these people are pushed to identify who they're actually talking to, they're like, I'm really not sure. There are people who go out on beaches and literally pray to these, pray to ask. They're praying, basically. And some of them use that word. For them to appear and show themselves in these, like, bright orbs. They call them orbs or plasmoids. One thing about this sphere, no pun intended, is that, like, they just make all these words, like, that make people sound so smart. I mean, why do we have to make up? I don't know. It's a plasmoid. It's a big ball of plasma, I guess, right? But sometimes we use big words and we don't really know what we're talking about. We're actually coming across as stupider than we actually are. But so anyway, not calling anybody, I said as we, like, we're all stupid in some ways, right? We're all smart in some ways and stupid in some ways. So, but that's the thing is, we teach our kids this. We were taught as kids, why are we just doing that? And it's a double standard, okay? And especially if we're going to presume that these beings are more, technologically advanced and perhaps more intelligent and, just in some way stronger. And why would we do that? We're making ourselves vulnerable when we shouldn't. So I just wanted to mention, I'm a Christian. I do believe in the Bible, the Old Testament, New Testament. I believe it's all useful. And the main thing is trust Jesus, follow him, do what he says, look at the Sermon on the Mount. That's the main thing. Like, that's, if you want a rule to live by, it's the law of the Spirit, Sermon on the Mount. But just something I was thinking a lot about. In the Old Testament, when angels would appear, God would send an angel, which just means a messenger, okay? In Hebrew, I believe it's malach. In Greek, I believe it's angelos, I'm not sure how to pronounce that, but it just means messenger. So, bringing a message from God, they're speaking on God's behalf, they're like a spokesperson, okay? And the ones who came from God always identified. They never just gave the message and expected the recipient to accept it at face value. Like, excuse me, I'm Gabriel. Don't you know me? I'm giving you the message. Don't be disrespectful. They're like, the Lord says, da 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 da, and they always preface the message with the Lord says such and such. And I mean, that's how we'll often read it in modern English translations, is Lord, all capital letters, Lord, all caps. This is a tradition. I forget when it started, but it might be loosely associated with the cultural sensitivity about saying, well, actually, yeah, the name of God, which basically many people consider the Tetragrammaton, which is Hebrew letters. In English, they're YHWH, or pronounced Yahweh. Jehovah's Witnesses would say Jehovah, but it's Yahweh. Something like that. Okay, I'm not saying exactly how to pronounce it. I'm feeling like this line can be very lost here, this whole point. But basically the point is that in Hebrew, the characters are Yahweh, 4 consonants, no vowels. And in the Jewish culture, at a certain point it became, there was this idea that it was almost too holy to say out loud, to pronounce. And so very often, like even today in Jewish writings, you'll see capital G and then a dash, like not even the O, and then D. They won't even spell out God fully. Let's just call it a sensitivity. It's kind of an anti-example, but something that'll make sense is the Harry Potter movies. They wouldn't say Voldemort. They would say the one who must not be named, or something like that. I'm probably misstating that, but like the whole idea, like you can't even say his name. It's so whatever. It's so terrible, or so powerful, or so scary to say. And so the Jewish people would just sort of think like, wow, it's like you don't want to blaspheme God, or you don't want to be disrespectful or something. I remember, like, maybe another example is like, as a parent, like if your kid called you by your first name, I'm not going to say which. One of my children has called me by my first name, Fred, once or twice, and I'll tell you, it didn't feel right. I didn't like it. But I don't have a problem saying God or Yahweh or anything like that. I don't even think that's like literally the name of God. There's a meaning to that word. But the point is, reeling it all the way back to messengers and angels, they would always preface a message from God with, "This is coming from God. I'm not making this up. I'm not speaking from my own authority. This doesn't come from me. I'm just the messenger. And this is what he says." So they identified themselves and identified who they were speaking on behalf of. And that, guys, is not what I'm hearing in any of this. Even this one guy says, "Oh, it's the lady." Like, the lady? Like, the lady of what? The lady of the lake? Is this, King Arthur? Is this, Mother Mary or something? I mean, I'm not Roman Catholic, but like, is this some woman deity, female identifying deity or something from ancient Greece or Rome or Nordic, mythology or something? Like, what is this lady? And so that's very concerning to me. It's very opaque. It's very, it's like, I'm not going to be too direct with you. Mysterious predator, okay? Groomer. Like, that's big red flag, all right? And, hey, here's like the ultimate example. Jesus. Especially in the book of John. You'll see it elsewhere in the Gospels. When Jesus says things, when he teaches and when he's like, hey, does a miracle or, he says, hey, I don't do this by my own power. I only say what the Father told me to say. Everything I do is what the Father enabled me to do or told me to do. He never takes credit. He always gives credit to the Father. So if some superior beings are coming and not being direct, big red flag. And so, just wrap it up here. So, anonymity, it's a big issue, and I just see like that's I would say the biggest warning. If you want an alarm that's going to go off, like that's a warning. Anonymity. In this whole unidentified sphere, guys. Now, if they start saying, like, yeah, my name is Belial or Baal or some, Molech, some ancient evil deity or something, okay. Well, maybe that's really who they are because they want the recognition, they want the worship, okay? If it's like, hey, I'm some like unpronounceable name and we're from the famous one is Zeta Reticuli, some star system or Alpha Centauri or something like that. There's a great movie that came out recently, Project Hail Mary, and there's this creature, I can't remember what, SETI? No, it wasn't SETI. Maybe it was SETI. CETI. Anyway, yeah, I should remember that star system. But anyway, it was a great movie. I recommend it. But like, hey, if they're identifying themselves up front, okay, maybe we can start exploring that. If they're being up front and direct, or hey, this is I'm your great granddaughter, Melody, and I came back to warn you about the Earth's environment, or something like that. Okay, well, can you tell me who my wife is and the name of my grandparents? Maybe do a little vetting right there, guys. Hey, we can work with that if they're willing to identify themselves. Or hey, I'm the angel Gabriel. The Lord sent me. Okay. What happened with Mary? Can you tell me what happened with Mary and Joseph? Was that you? Do a little vetting there, guys. But seriously, there's clearly stuff going on. We don't know what it is. It's not obvious. So anyway, think like a kid, think like a smart kid, think like a wise adult, and apply it to this. That's it. Hope you're having a great time. And again, if a UFO lands near me, I will definitely be making a video if I'm able. All right, peace.